Yeah, greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. Welcome back. It's League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, beauties, for the penultimate day of action in the LCK for 2024. KT versus FearX for, it's all elimination now at this point in the gauntlet. And be careful, because I'm starting to hear some 2022 music, because KT rolster within the microcosm of a single series, you saw the level up happen from game 1 to game 2 to game 3.
I'm not convinced that this isn't some supernatural thing going on in the universe, that it is Earth has aligned with all the planets and the sun's light and ray beams come through and shine and hit this special magical crystal on Earth, and all of a sudden the 2022 DRX members have all gained their world champion powers once again, and here we see it tonight for KT rolster.
Yeah, I mean, you first saw Zeka come online and dominate Gen G circa 2022. Kingen levels up in a game 4 and 5 scenario against T1, and then the trio of Beryl, Piosik, and Deft all coming online in this set. Deft got the Ziggs in game 1 and did a nice little 51,000 little bit of damage to champions, which was more than 20,000 more than anyone else. And really, what KT showed in this series is they can both play Ziggs and play around Ziggs.
And if you're T1 looking at this matchup, getting ready for the next one, you're scared about that.
Sweat.
Oh, baby. Seeing that done by KT rolster through this series, specifically utilizing the Ziggs in game 1, and truly, almost it seemed like every member, not just Deft, everybody on this team understood, okay, this Ziggs gets off the ground, this is how we're playing. This is how we're getting our damage done on these things. That's what we're playing around. And then, as you said, they know how to play against the Ziggs, which you saw later in this series as well. KT rolster having that type of mastery, having that type of handle on what is such an incredibly important and hot pick in the meta right now, clearly a good sign for them during this gauntlet run.
So game 1 was a little slow-paced and mostly sloppy from both teams, but then we get a trade of masterclass performances. First, you get Deft, the maestro on the Jhin in game 2. I've never seen so many W's and fourth shots landed on the ulti. He finishes 10-0 and 8, and then in the third game, it's a tutorial on how to play Yone by BDD.
Which is, that one I was not counting in the cards for the day on what we were going to see in the different angle from BDD. And yes, it might not be Zeka levels of Yone, but that was pretty darn good. Pretty top tier in the LCK. What we were able to see from BDD, a huge difference maker in all the crucial moments in this game 3. A lot of these team fights, a lot of these big moments, of course, it is that Yone coming through, cleaning up, setting it up, getting the knockup, everything in this game 3. KT rolster, 3 games. One of them a little bit sloppy, the other 2 very clean, very much in control of the power that you want to see from them, closing out this series and putting themselves up with a date against T1.
And yeah, now we're set up for what feels like the highest stakes Telecom War showdown probably ever. You know, I mean, I guess you can go back to some of the finals back in 2017, but first time they've actually ever met up in the gauntlet like this. Obviously, the final spot at Worlds, loser is going home. The season is over. We got 8 different world champions on here, but this is feeling a little scarily similar to that KT or that DRX run in 2022, of course, because 3/5 of the member are sitting pretty here on KT rolster and have just started to level up. And you combine that, and yeah, T1. We're not excited for KT, but we're sweating big time if you're T1 right now.
You're concerned about this throwdown. There are certainly some things that we'll talk about here as we go into depth about it, on where you can find your edge if you're a T1 fan, an edge if you're a KT fan heading into this series, and where you find that advantage for your team. I think we're headed to a dust up. We are headed to a Silver Scrapes bonanza in this one between the two telecom teams of LCK.
And obviously, we know the meta has not clicked with T1 right now. We've talked about the Ziggs multiple times. You talk about mid lane picks like Smolder and Yone, which you're way putting on the side of BDD, excelling on those picks over Faker. And then you combine Corki's rocking a 10-game losing streak in the LCK. Obviously, that's one of Faker's go-to pick. He's personally had, like a 17-game win streak on that champion, but Corki is definitely fallen off the meta. So the mid lane champ pool now, for the first time, and it feels like ever, is favoring the guy opposite Faker.
And it's almost crazy to say that you have this uncertainty around what Faker will want to play in this series. You've never almost had to say that throughout the course of his career. I think this is a strange, a fork in the road for him at this point in his career. We've never had a situation where you've gone, he doesn't quite look as tuned up, as sharp, as familiar with this champion as someone else is. But we've seen the rise of Chovy, Showmaker, Knight, all these amazing, very talented players around the world. And we've seen them, of course, adapt, pick up these new champions, different champions into their stable. Haven't quite seen that for T1. It is still mostly you're thinking Orianna, Azir, the Corki, the Rise, all these type of things for Faker. You know he can play the additional, but can it be at that high level? That's going to be the test here. You're going to have to find something like that if you're T1, because as you laid out before this, Corki, right now, that 0-10, that's not the pick to be choosing in these playoffs.
The main spot, the biggest advantage you've got to be looking at for T1 and something to exploit in this series is Zeus matching up against a rookie Imperfect who obviously is definitely going to feel the nerves, feel the pressure, and if you're Zeus, the guy who we've talked about at times as the best top laner on the planet, you need a standout series performance from him.
He's got to be online, no question about it. He needs to be thriving in this series for T1 to be the victors. That's the way it will play out here. And he's got that early advantage, that on-paper advantage that we look at against Perfect in the top side. And you can go in, obviously, the clear head-to-heads that we've had between these two inside with Zeus. You can go with just raw gameplay and what you see from them inside with Zeus, even with the mistakes and some of the sloppiness that we have seen from Zeus, which is bittersweet to talk about, because yes, we've seen a bit more so of a rise, a bit more of a return to form in this window of recent, but in that window of recent, you do have the last series and that performance, and then you also have the Hanwha Life series, and you can keep going back down and find series or moments where you don't like within this stretch of mostly positive things, mostly good momentum for a player like Zeus. And then we saw this series today on Perfect, and what did we get different? The Jax in the top lane. Now, this was not Doran's Jax. This was not the Jax that's coming through and picking up a triple kill down at the Dragon. No. But this was something different, and at least it changes it up and provides a different angle for him and a different opportunity, different champion to go through than what we saw last time around against Zeus, where it was, give me that Renekton. Give me that Renekton.
Yeah, and with Faker struggling in the laning phase, the bot lane struggling to find picks that they can pop off on in the bot lane, you need to ride the Zeus train. I don't want to see Renekton Cassante matchups over and over. You've got to pick him something with urgency. He needs attention from owner to take over these games. That seems like the most obvious and direct path for T1 to win this series, because even though they've looked so shaky, you know that they just have to limp into a world championship, and then they can kind of go, okay, let's take the time to really figure out what the meta's going to be for Worlds, and you know they can level up to a world champion level, but they got to get to Worlds to do that.
There's a whole wonderful and thrilling and exciting conversation about T1 as the 4th seed from the LCK, the defending world champions, as that 4th seed. But you got to earn that 4th seed. No questions about it. And that comes down to this matchup against KT rolster. As tough as it might be to slide it down to one single thing out of the course of the whole year, all these moments, all the scrims, all the practice, all the games, anything down to this one single moment. But that's what it comes down to here for KT and T1. Their years are make or break this matchup.
very different ways to get here. T1, those are the 2 straight playoff series. KT coming off a sweep. They're still going to be the underdogs. All the pressure is going to be on T1. So KT is kind of playing with house money at this point, and who knows what that relates to in a series. But either way, it's a bigger disaster if T1 doesn't make it. But did they get it done, Mark?
You know what? The fan in me will say yes. The T1 fan in me, I'll be the homer. I'll say
Riot
yes.
needs them there. We got all this teaser material.
They find a way to get it done against all the odds. Kyria gets a major performance in this series. He clinches it out in Game 5 against Beryl to send T1 to the World Championship.
Against his nemesis?
That's what I'm going with. Even though I think that's one of the angles, as much as I'm excited about Zeus versus Perfect as a matchup for T1, I'm worried about that one. Kyria and Beryl, of course, the history, but never mind that. The meta, the champions that are played right now, the engaged champions, Beryl has got a major advantage for me in that regard.
Either one winning is a fantastic story, and will be a terrifying prospect even as a 4th seed heading into that World Championship. I hope we get 5 games just for the absolute drama and to add to the insane legacy that is the Telecom War. And then after this, that is your 20th and final team that will qualify for the World Championship. So everybody enjoy a absolutely crazy high-stakes Saturday in the LCK. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Wonderful people. Thanks for hanging out, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.